So let us study a surgery case today. Supposing you get a case of inguinal hernia. So what is some background knowledge about inguinal hernia? So we draw this diagram of abdomen. We knew that Dr. Das, our head in anatomy, used to draw this abdomen very, very beautiful. We know that somewhere here will be the pubic tubercle and here is the anterior-sphenic spine. Between this would extend the inguinal ligament. And on this inguinal ligament will be attached on this side a muscle which is the external oblique. And this external oblique will be converted to an aponeurosis, and there will be a ring here which is called as the superficial inguinal ring. From here will originate the pyramidalis, and from the superior edge of the linea of the pubic symphysis you will have the linea alba or the central tendon. All right. Now from the superior border of the anterior surface of the superior part of the will arise the rectus abdominis muscle, which will be on both sides of the linea alba, and so this will be the muscular outline of the region that we are about to study. Now, what is a hernia? A hernia is the protrusion of the contents of a cavity through a hole in its wall. As soon as we used to say this, our teachers used to make this diagram, and tell us that is this protrusion of the tongue a hernia. It is a content which has come out of the hole of a cavity. So we used to add abnormal protrusion of the contents of a cavity through a hole. Why should this occur? Because the hole is bigger or there is increased pressure in the cavity. So what are the sites of hernia? One can be a diaphragmatic hernia or rupture. So the esophageal hiatus through which the stomach comes out. The stomach can herniate either through the same hiatus or through another hole. So this can be a diaphragmatic hernia. Then there can be an inguinal hernia, which is through the superficial inguinal ring. And this hernia would come out like this and go into the scrotum. The difference between a scrotal swelling and an inguinoscrotal swelling will be that you will be able to reach on the top of a scrotal swelling and not on top of a inguinal swelling. So we note down this very important difference between scrotal and inguinoscrotal swelling. And the difference is that you can reach above the scrotal swelling and not above inguinoscrotal swelling. That's the first of all, by the sight you say that this is maybe a scrotal or inguinoscrotal swelling, and the first important physical sign is that whether you can reach above or you don't reach above the swelling. So we continue with our sights. So from the diaphragm we come to the umbilicus or paraumbilicus, then we come to the inguinal, then we come to the femoral. So these are the common sites of hernia: diaphragm, umbilical, paraumbilical, inguinal or femoral. Now this femoral hernia, there's a pectineal eminence and the pectineal notch and the pubic tubercle and the pubic symphysis like this, and there is this inguinal ligament like this, and there is this lacunar part of the inguinal ligament in which lies the accessory obturator artery coming from the inferior epigastric and going behind this into the to meet the obturator. Then there is this lymph node of Clockway, and then there is this vein, artery and nerve. So it is through this canal that there is herniation. There is herniation. So this is the hernial sac and this is the neck. And this femoral hernia, it's below the inguinal canal. The inguinal hernia is below the inguinal ligament, and the inguinal hernia is above the inguinal ligament. That's the difference. And since it is in a very narrow space, therefore this hernia can get strangulated. It can get pressed here. So first it gets obstructed, then it gets ischemic, then it can perforate. So what you have to do is that you have to decompress it. Now you can't go this way, you can't go this way. If you go up, you are going to damage the inguinal ligament, and if you go medially, you are going to damage this accessory obturator artery, which we have named as corona mortis. Therefore the easiest thing to do is that you fracture this pubic tubercle, lift off the inguinal ligament, and then reduce the hernia. So that's the way to stop strangulation here. And here is the obturator foramen. Okay. So this is about the femoral hernia. And we are going to color it beautifully, because we are very, very fond of very good diagrams. Okay. So this is about the femoral hernia. So now we will concentrate on the inguinal hernia, but before that we will just say that what are the boundaries in the inguinal canal. So this is the epineurosis of the external oblique coming and turning around like this. Behind this you have the fascia of the fascia transversalis, which comes like this and goes on to the iliopsoas muscle. Let us say it goes on to, we are at the level of the artery, vein and nerve. It goes on to cover that, and behind that you have the bone. So now this gutter formed by fascia transversalis is converted into fascia transversalis on one hand and the inguinal ligament on the other, on which this side is attached the deep fascia of the thigh. Okay, and this is the skin and this is the subcutaneous tissue, and this is the subcutaneous tissue of the thigh, and here you have the skin. Okay, now this is converted into a canal. This is the external oblique muscle, okay, converting into aponeurosis and forming the inguinal ligament into two muscles, the internal oblique and transversus abdominis, that arise from the lateral side. From the lateral side, they arise from the lateral part of the inguinal ligament. They are arch around the middle, and on the medial side they go and get attached to the pubic tubercle, and there are two of them. See, so there are two of them, the internal oblique and transversus abdominis, and they form a conjoint tendon which gets inserted into the pubic tubercle. So they form a conjoint tendon. So that's how this gutter is converted into a canal, which is the inguinal canal. So we'll revise the boundaries of the inguinal canal. The boundaries are anteriorly the inguinal ligament, the external oblique aponeurosis, inferiorly the inguinal ligament, posteriorly the fascia transversalis, on which is the conjoint tendon, superiorly the arching fibers of the internal oblique and transversus abdominis, and the anterior wall is strengthened by the internal oblique and the transversus abdominis muscles. The internal oblique and the transversus abdominis muscles. Then the second thing that you are asked is, what are the contents of the inguinal canal? So if we sort of make it again, so this is the inguinal ligament, here is the superficial inguinal ring, and these muscles are placed like this, and they are going behind the conjoint tendon, and there is a hole in the fascia transversalis here, it's called as the deep inguinal ring, and the contents come out from this, go under this arch, and emerge out of the superficial inguinal ring, and go into the scrotum, and here is the pubic tubercle. So they go above the pubic tubercle. The femoral hernia comes below the pubic tubercle. Okay, now what are the contents? The vas deferens or the round ligament, because in your woman the testes is inside. Then the testicular artery, the pampiniform plexus of veins, lymphatics, ilioinguinal nerve, and they are covered by three sheets. The peritoneum, you see, if this is a deep inguinal ring, it's lined like this, so the peritoneum, the fascia transversalis, which forms a muscle which is called as the cremasteric muscle, and the fascia from the external oblique. So they are covered by three layers, and these are the structures that lie in the inguinal canal. And what happens that through the deep inguinal ring, so this is the deep inguinal ring, here is the reflection part of the inguinal ligament. I told you it has four parts, lacunar, pectineal, and reflexum. So this is the reflexing part of the ligament, and here you have a very important artery, which is the inferior epigastric artery. So this is the importance of inguinal this, and here you have the rectus abdominis muscle, and in this triangle between the inferior epigastric artery and the rectus abdominis, you have another artery, which is the umbilical artery, and this triangle is called as the Hasselbalch's triangle. So the hernia can occur through the deep inguinal ring, when it will be called as indirect. It can occur through the wall here, when it will be called as direct. And there is a third type of hernia which is both indirect and direct, and this is called as pantaloon hernia. It's like a pant, it's this side, that side, and here is the this ligament. So it's from the deep and the superficial inguinal ring both. So such hernia is pantaloon hernia. So just to confuse you, they can cite all these terms, and this is the triangle of Hasselbalch. Okay. So with this background knowledge, you are prepared to answer a question of inguinal hernia. What is your diagnosis? Inguinal hernia. Right side. Always remember to say the side of the hernia, because you have reduced the hernia, you forgot to record the site, and the patient is under anesthesia, and you are draped and wearing gloves and gown and prepared to operate. That's your first operation, and you do not know which side to operate. So it's extremely important to record the side of the hernia. The second important thing is that this asks you, why do you say so? So you say there is a inguinoscrotal swelling. I cannot, on the right side, I cannot reach above the swelling, so it is inguinoscrotal. And there is a presence of cough impulse. The third question they ask you is it direct, indirect, or pantaloon? You say any of these terms and you say that I have been able to reduce the hernia, I have been able to occlude the deep inguinal ring, and the cough impulse has become absent. So if the cough impulse is absent, it is direct. If it is present, it is indirect. If it is absent, it is indirect. That means it's come from the deep inguinal ring. If it is present, still present, it is direct. And of course, if the cough impulse decreases, then it can be pantaloon. It is not absent, but it decreases. So this is known as ring occlusion test. Then they ask you, what do you think, what is your differential diagnosis? You say, my differential diagnosis is that it can be a varicocele from the Pempaniform plexus of veins. It can be a lymph varix. It can be inflammation of the lymphatics as seen in filarial funiculitis. It can be undescended testes. It can be an unascended. kidney. So these are some of the possibilities. So I'll ask you, why is it not the varicocele? You can say I do a deep test, deep ring occlusion test, and when I leave it, if it fills from above, it is hernia. If it fills from below, it is varicocele. Then there is something which is called as congenital hernia. And this congenital hernia means that there is only a peritoneal connection. There is nothing in this, and it's going right up to the tunica vaginalis, because tunica vaginalis of the testes is actually from the peritoneum. It's the peritoneum which comes like this, and behind is the testes like this. So tunica vaginalis, this is a congenital hernia. And what is the peculiarity of this? That it contains fluid. It is inguinoscrotal swelling, and the peculiarity of this is transilluminancy. So funiculitis will be painful. In undescended testes, there will be no testes in the scrotum, and in unascended kidney, it is in the abdomen, not in the hernial region. So this is the differential diagnosis of inguinal hernia, and how you will answer why not this. So then they say, what is the stage of the hernia? So the stage is, it is reducible, it is irreducible, then it becomes obstructed. When there is obstructed, it means that there is a backward pressure and there is a forward failure. So on this side there is absolute constipation, on this side you have distension, visible peristalsis, and then you can have features, backward pressure features like vomiting. So these are the features of obstruction. It's obstructed. Then as the intraluminal pressure in the intestine rise, the arteries, the veins are blocked because the pressure is higher than veins. Arteries keep on pumping blood, so there is fluid collection inside it, so it becomes swollen and painful, swollen, congested, painful. There may be a color change. Then the arteries also stop, so it becomes ischemic, and this ischemic is recognized by rebound tenderness. That means you press and you leave, and when you leave there is tenderness, that is called as rebound tenderness, and then it can become gangrenous. This of course means that there is a color change and there is lot of toxemia, and then it can perforate. So these are the various stages of hernia, and a careful surgeon, before he leaves the patient, knows in which stage this hernia is. Then how do you treat inguinal hernia? How would you treat? So you will expose, your patient will be under general anesthesia, part preparation and draping would be done, You will expose it by cutting off the skin, the subcutaneous tissue, the external oblique aponeurosis, because there is no deep fascia in the abdomen parallel to the inguinal ligament. Then you will open the hernial sac. You will examine the status. So, in the deep inguinal hernia, the neck is examine what is the content of the hernia, dissect out the content. By opening the hernial sac means that you will go through the three layers: the external, the cremasteric, and the internal fascia. Then you will examine the content. Then if you will try to reduce the content, if you are unable to reduce, then you will try to increase the size of the hole, and you will not go medial because there is the inferior epigastric artery and the ligamentum reflexum there. And you know that you have reached the deep inguinal ring when you can see the extra peritoneal pad of fat, or you can feel the inferior epigastric artery. Then you will repair. So this much part is called as herniotomy. And then repair means that if this is the external oblique aponeurosis and this is the inguinal ligament and here is the conjoint ligament, you stitch the conjoint tendon with the inguinal ligament. This is called as herniorrhaphy. And sometimes if you can't do that, then you have to put a mesh. You put a mesh like this, and in this mesh there is fibrosis, and that prevents hernia. And sometimes you can go through laparoscopy and fit the mesh behind the fascia transversalis. So that is endoscopic hernial repair. So this much of hernia today. Best of luck.